All right, let's get this show on the road. I hope I can cut all of that stuff from the beginning of the stream. I've never done this before, so anyone who's watching either right now or in the future, I'll excuse myself for any misfortunes. But all right, welcome back, everybody. The Technocrat here, obviously. I thought I would, like many other YouTubers, I would make a tier list of what goods I think are worth to produce and what goods I think you should not be producing. I've already done this kind of in my older videos as well, but I think like a tier list seems like fun, so I think I will I'll try it. Big asterisk though, unfortunately Victoria 3 isn't really a game that leans itself very good to this is objectively better all the time, and this is there's a lot of what if and only if and this but not when that and so on and so forth. But I think we will discover this as we go along, and you will just have to be fine with it. All right. All right, I think I'm just gonna go from left to right and just do them one at a time, and we will take it from there. So, in my mind, before we begin, in my mind, this tier list is going to reflect how willing you are to construct the buildings that are producing these goods and how much you are willing to construct that particular good in your own market. It does not reflect how important it is to import. It does not reflect how necessary it is for your economy. And it does not reflect like how important or how good it is in a vacuum, because what we have to understand is that all of the goods in Victoria 3 are kind of related to each other. Like if we should supposed to, like, it's very easy to look at a spreadsheet, right, and look at what this good is more efficient, assuming everything is at base price and assuming everything is correct and assuming you have this access to your market and what so on and so forth. Victoria 3 is never like that, right? So there's a lot of there's a lot of context needed. What technology do you have unlocked? What country are you playing? Are you planning on going to war? Or like how many colonies how many colonies do you have? What kind of economic system do you have? Like how do you want it to affect your politics? Like there's a lot of things to consider, just not what good is what is nice to produce in a vacuum by itself, right? So you will kind of discover this as I go along, but in my mind this tier list is going to reflect how much you want to produce it by yourself, how much ideally you want to export it. That's basically it. The lower on this tier list, the more you would want to import it, basically. All right, and we're going to, as I bring up some of the goods, I'm going to say that some of these have pretty big asterisks associated with them, and I'll say that when you go along. But very important to remember, just because I put say like some plantations goods on high on this tier list doesn't mean it's always good to produce. Like for example, plantations are dog shit, like never worth it in the early game, but when you unlock certain technologies that makes you use engines, automatic irrigation maybe it's called, that essentially doubles the output and makes it use engines, which makes it a very good building. So that is kind of what I'm talking about. Like sugar, for example, is before you have that technology, it is absolutely horrendous. When you have that technology, it might go into A tier or B tier. So that's what I'm talking about. All right. Let's get into this round. We have a strong start here with a grain at the D tier, right? So grain is absolutely essential to your economy. Like, people will be so angry with you if the grain price is high. So you are very tempted to build the grain farms in the beginning there. Cheap to construct, the people want it. It will like raise standard of living, right? The thing is, in the early game, you also want people to move away from farms, because peasants they will not educate. They will keep the landowners in power. They will not earn a good wage. So, and they will also farms in general will they will destroy arable land in your country. So like, yeah, if you have like a super shortage, that might, justify it. But in general, just don't put taxes on grain, and generally like import it as much as possible, especially in the early game, right? You want grain to be pretty cheap. This will stop your capitalists and your like private investment pool of constructing them, and B, it will help with standard of living, because all of the poor pops want grain, right? I put sugar here, didn't I? I'm going to put sugar in A tier, and this is because, very important, the plantations, again, are very, very good at just improving your economy, as in, like, it kind of, it's a easy way to boost up your, not, how am I going to say this? It's an easy way to boost up the numbers of you, prop up really the GDP figure without really like improving your industry, so to speak. Sugar, and this goes especially for like opium and stuff, right? They don't increase capitalists and stuff like that, right? But they do increase, like, they do increase like most of the goods in that can use automatic irrigation. They produce a lot of value for the amount of construction that they put into it. So it's an easy way, again, to increase your GDP figure, which is important because that increases minting and it increases like how much you can borrow and stuff like that, right? So just propping up the GDP figure can sometimes be important. So plantations, 2 asterisks. Build them in colonies, not in your core territory, because you want your core territory to have arable land, so that you will have immigration and whatnot. You don't want like landowners and aristocrats to have more power, so you will put them in your colonies where they are like politically disempowered, right? And only when you have that relevant technology. All right, promise me you will remember this now. All right, this of course goes for the other ones as well. Fruit is a weird one because that doesn't really work with fruit. Fruit is you kind of want to be producing food in groceries because those are owned by capitalists. So fruit is kind of they will eat fruit instead of groceries, or they will rather eat groceries instead of food when they are able to. So fruit is a competitor to groceries, a bad one at that, and that will be owned by the landowners instead, and it's not a good building either. It doesn't provide a good enough wage, and it's not very construction efficient, right? This goes for fabric as well. So the same thing kind of applies, unless it's a cotton plantation, which obviously kind of bumps it up to A tier. This is what I mean, right? It's a very weird thing. But I guess I'll keep it in A tier for now, and we'll revise it later. So clothing is an interesting one, because clothing is a major pusher of standard of living, and it can be unlocked pretty early. But it's not that efficient, I think. So consumer goods, textile mills, yeah, not really. But I guess you get it kind of early, and it's like a. I'll guess we put it in A tier, or for now, and we'll keep it there because it's a. They also use shopkeepers, I think, so it's like it's kind of a weird one. But you know you are going to want to produce. Generally, you want to produce clothing throughout the game, because you never really want to run out of it, do you? And luxury clothing is actually a pretty good to produce and export, depending on obviously how it's looking with dyes and fabric and stuff like that, right? It's not worth if the fabric and dye prices are very high. It's not really worth bumping them up, but you definitely want some domestic production of it. So services is one of those that's like you kind of get it automatically anyway, and it's not really worth like constructing a huge surplus of, and you can't export it either. So it's an automatic D tier for me. Fine art. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Fine art. Like economically wise, it's a bad choice because it doesn't provide a very good wage. It doesn't provide much value for the amount of construction you put into it. In the later stages, it employs academics, which do have a pretty decent wage, but like at that point, you don't really need academics anymore. You don't need to push it as a like political group, because when you unlock like the later stages of fine art, like film or whatever it is, you don't really need art. So well, fabric is a weird one, because fabric is a it's not it doesn't, like, you can't produce it, like in the early game, if you're using your construction to produce like to build cotton plantations, or even worse, livestock ranches, right? Like livestock ranches is super bad. So that's why it's a weird one. But assuming what I said earlier, assuming you have all of those conditions met, that's I'm going to put most of the plantations in A, because I'm assuming that you are building them in colonies and you have the right technology for them, and they are used, like you said, they are used in good in clothing and stuff, which you want to produce domestically. But yeah, sorry, tangent. So fine art is not a good it's not a great demand, because it's only the extreme rich that can buy it. It provides, yes, it does employ academics, but way too late in the game. And yes, it is good for prestige. So if you really need some like extra prestige, like you want to be the global leader in art, then I mean, yeah, go for it. But at that point, you're not really looking towards what's good for my economy anymore. You're looking for what's good for prestige. And like, if that amount of prestige is enough to, you know, push you over some sort of limit or whatever, like like prestige is easier to just, you know, get by having a stronger military or having a stronger economy than your opponents. So if you have to cheese prestige by building a lot of art academies, you are really falling behind in stuff what you could be doing. So I'm not really like, I guess if you really need to you really are grasping for every point of prestige you can get from not falling out of great power status or whatever, but like that, so such niche experiences that I don't care about really, that people are saying that it's good, because there has been so few cases where I want that amount of prestige that it provides, really. So liquor is an interesting one. I'm gonna put that in B. So liquor is important for your standard of living, especially your poor people. But it's not in of itself, it's not a good building. Because like it's split between groceries and yeah, it's split between groceries, or if it's produced in rye farms, but that's not really what we're talking about, right? It's split between groceries and yeah, and uses sugar as an input. And as we discussed earlier, sugar is not really a good you want to be producing a lot of in the early game. So if you have to build sugar plantations to make it work, that makes that building that is already like not really super great, having a even worse production like supply chain, that's not really great. On the other hand, you kind of want it to like push standard of living and like not make your people super mad. And like pointed out, the army needs it. and like when you actually have sugar plantations online, if you have easy access to sugar, maybe you have maybe you got some people into your custom union in you know, in Africa or Southeast Asia or whatever, in India, whatever, then I don't see why not. But it's like, it's one of those like middling. It's like you kind of build it because you have to, not really because you want to. It's not a great good to be building and exporting. Same really goes for tobacco. Tobacco is an intoxicant, so it competes with opium and alcohol. So I'm actually gonna put in a beat here, because like, yes, it's a plantation, so it becomes great, or not great, but it becomes good when you have automatic irrigation, but it's not really something you want to be building and exporting. A, it's produced in colonies and you want to be providing jobs in your core territories, and B, it competes with opium. Opium, on the other hand, that's a clear S tier item. Like the amount of value you can just add to your economy by just building opium plantations, it's absolutely absurd. Like, it will provide your people with their need for intoxicant, diminishing the needs for like tobacco or alcohol, and they will provide just immense value for very little construction. The drawbacks is that they don't give pops. Generally, you want to be building open plantations in non-core territory, right? So they don't provide your core territory with jobs, and they don't provide like investment pool contribution really, because they don't employ capitalists. But like, just the amount of like standard of living and just the amount of money printing you can do, which just boops, it kind of inflates your GDP figure, which again increases minting, it increases the amount of you can borrow, all that jazz. So just having opium plantations just bumping up your GDP figures, it is kind of great. So opium is one of those buildings that you absolutely want in your economy, not in your core territory, but you absolutely want to be looking for like colonies and whatnot that can produce opium, which is basically parts of India. So when it comes to, I'm gonna bunch up these military goods one, because they are kind of similar. Military goods actually have a very efficient, most of them have very efficient production methods, as in they don't need, like, a couple of factories can easily produce a lot of guns and whatnot. They actually provide a decent wage as well. Given that, big asterisk, given that the price of these goods are at base value, which they never are. These buildings are so good at producing what they they're so good at producing their respective goods that in non-war times the price is going to be super depressed and the building will not be viable. And then you go to war and suddenly it just jumps to activity and it provides super good wage and like massive profits, right? But that profit just comes from you, the state. So it's not a building that can stand on its own legs. It needs like the state to basically pay for the goods, like the military industrial complex, really. So it's not a building that you can base your economy on, because it will not employ people most of the time and then it's wartime and they just gets a surge of employment, right? But the thing is, I'm gonna put this in C tier, because the thing is that you kind of want them, or you don't kind of want them. You absolutely want these industries to be prevalent in your nation because you cannot rely on other nations to do them. Having shortages of these goods when you go to war is an absolute disaster. So having these goods not be available to you, it's a big no-no. You never want to, like, obviously if you can export them, you should during peacetime, to just kind of keep them keep them employed, and again, you can produce quite a lot of guns just with little little investment. But the thing is, if there are not some big wars going on, there will not be a decent demand for them anyway, so you will have a hard time exporting in like wartime industrial goods. If you are playing single player, or if you're playing with few players, one of the things you can do is very aggressively push these goods even if they don't make you a profit, in order to kind of rely, like, cheat the AI of not building their own wartime industry, and when they go to war or you go to war with them, you cut that off, and they will have shortages because they haven't built their own war industry. That is kind of like a niche thing, and it doesn't always work. It actually very seldomly work, but there's something people should know about. So next up is fish. Fish I'm actually gonna put in A tier, because fish is the only building except logging camps that can be built for 200 construction, and I think it's 200 construction. But yeah, 200 construction, and be capitalist owned. You want fish. Fish is a very important good in your, like, very important in the grocery supply chain. It can provide food value. Food value by itself. But obviously, like, it cannot replace groceries or anything. But like, generally, I just put whenever I see fish warfers, right? I just generally put them on auto expand. Oh yeah, exactly. The fish use ships, which is one of those goods that you often you overproduce, because civilian ships are often not used enough by your harbors or stuff anyway. And it's kind of like one of the buildings that use ships in the private sector, really. So if you want to, absolutely, I always max out my be sure to use the right production methods, and make sure that they are capitalist owned, and I always max them out as much as possible. A very good building to like de-peasantify and just provide jobs easy that are decent. Fish warfare actually. I can see if I can find them here. I'm guessing this is agriculture, which doesn't. Whaling station fish, yeah, fish warfers, yeah. In the late game, they are actually really good when it comes to wages. It's okay, not really good, but they are pretty good. Like it's up there, like with flash freeze. So they kind of stay relevant throughout the game, which is nice. So like fish is gonna put them very early here, in A tier. Like it's one of those buildings I max out quickly. I have on auto expand because it's like it's never bad really to construct. Obviously you run out of them pretty quickly, but other than that, so next up is a good that I have been on. Like this porcelain has porcelain is one of the more like difficult goods for me to place, because on the one hand, like producing porcelain in your glassworks is really efficient. Like you get a lot of porcelain for little manpower. So if you can keep the porcelain price high and the glass price high, that's a really good wage for your people. So if you can export porcelain, that would be great. However, the thing is, porcelain kind of competes with glass, because you can either produce porcelain and glass, or you can produce only glass. And the thing is, glass is a consumer good, and it's also used in your construction sector if you have that production method, which means that you don't want glass to be super expensive. So you sometimes need to like just hammer out a lot of glass production, which means you want to turn porcelain off, and instead they will get their like luxury needs elsewhere, for example luxury clothes and stuff like that. So earlier I thought that porcelain was like one of the best things to produce in the game, and which is technically mathematically are, but it's not really. When it's one of those things that you cannot just analyze it on a spreadsheet in a vacuum, because that like I said, it's pretty misleading, because you would think that bone china, which with very impressive like efficiency numbers, would be great to produce, but it when it comes to like how important glass is and whatnot, like it's also competes with dyes, which you want elsewhere in your economy as well. Like it's one of those that I had to change my mind on, because you cannot just look at the good itself in a vacuum and analyze it anyway. So I'm gonna put it. I'm not gonna put it that. I'm gonna put it in a C tier, but like before military goods. But it's still not up here, which I thought earlier. Radio is one of those. You kind of want radios. Goes into your military. It's not a great. It's not a great building on its own, I think. Yeah, radio production. Yeah, no, it's not that great. It comes very late in the game, but obviously you want it for the military. Yeah, so the thing about luxury goods is that they increase in demand kind of exponentially with standard of living, or like it. As they get more money, they want to be spending more on luxury goods, which is it's a good thing to produce luxury goods. Yeah. So radio, it has military applications. It has military applications. It has civilian applications, but because people do want it. It's not a great. It's very expensive building to build, and it's not something you want to export since it's not very efficient wage like per pop either. So it's one of those buildings that you kind of want to. It's like steel. Like you want enough of it, but you don't want to overproduce it, and you definitely don't want to export it, right? Transport has absolutely dog shit production methods, and the only reason this like exists in the game is for you to makes so that railways aren't just a drain on your economy, right? It does provide some value to your pops, but it's like it's one of those that you obviously want to turn them on if you can, but like it's not something you want to be overproducing to give them transport. Like never. This is just a necessary evil, just like electricity. Enough said about that. It's a bit loud, isn't it? All right, cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, glass, it's a consumer good. It has pretty nice production chains, I think. Uses lead, which is nice. And later uses oil. And is used for construction, which is very important. How is it efficiency-wise? Glass works. It's middling, right? Unless you use oil, which obviously is better. It's all right. But the thing is, it's so important for like both consumers and construction that it's kind of just you want to be producing this domestically in high numbers, and having a outlet for lead is just a bonus, right? So glass gets an A tier just because of how important it is. Paper is a hard one. I'll place it in B tier, but I place it in high B tier because paper it's not a great good to be like exporting, producing lots and lots. The production methods aren't really that great, not even late game, with rotary valve and all that, but the thing is that it's a excuse to be producing more sulfur, which we will. I think I'll do sulfur next, actually, because sulfur is kind of, it's just, sulfur is so mind-boggling powerful to be producing in Victoria 3 that it actually bends the universe around it. Like you want you want to be producing sulfur so much that you are willing to basically just build buildings that doesn't make a profit, or like it's that are not great, because you just want them, you want the sulfur to go somewhere. So paper is one of those that, like, yeah, you look, okay, so you don't want a shortage of paper. Paper is used in your government buildings, and you want paper to be cheap so that, you know, all of the bureaucracies isn't ruining your state finances. And B, it's a input, like it uses sulfur for the input, which is horrendously good. So yeah, with that said, like let's move on to sulfur, right? So we can have this discussion. Sulfur is like the S tier. Like it's not in front of gold, but it is almost in front of gold, because sulfur is so mind-boggling. It is just so damn good. Like, this is not a joke, right? If you keep sulfur at base price, and you keep the input goods at base price as well, sulfur mines with steam donkey, rail transport, on dynamite, it's actually the best building, like the best wage providing building in the game. Like, except gold mines. I think gold mines and sulfur mines have the same, actually, in providing wages, if in ideal conditions. Isn't that just mind-boggling to you? Like, so, like, when you have, like, in the very late, like, think a late 11 economy, like, fully industrialized, just pulling sulfur out of the ground provides you a better wage than, art academies and or like heavy industry, electronic industries. That's just insane to me. And it's also very efficient, like, construction wise, because it provides a lot of value for it's a pretty decently cheap building to construct. It's not as cheap as like logging camps and farms, but it costs as a mine costs, which is, I think it's 400 construction, something like that. It helps you depacify population quickly. It provides them with a great wage. It's important for many supply chains. Like sulfur, I can't even describe how good it is. So the thing is that you want stuff to be produced, like, using sulfur. So where do I put the sulfur then, right? You can put it in paper, but I would recommend you won't be like maximizing mines anyway. So I would be actually putting them in fertilizer plants. Is a decent place to put it. But obviously explosives. Explosives is used in military. It's used in your mines, especially when after you unlock dynamite. You don't need to use nitroglycerin anymore. It's just super nice. So but like you can even I think dye plantations are not that great either when it comes to efficiency, but like they are worth producing, only because like having some sort of like some place for sulfur to go is so important. Is it not here? Is it a resource? It's not that important, but like it, yeah, that's it really. So like sulfur and gold, like sulfur, gold, oil, and opium is worth, like, it's worth warping your entire being around. Like, where do I want to expand? Where do I want to attack? How do I build what do I build my economy around? Like, it's one of those that like kind of influences where it influences everything. So just keeping in mind like where are my sulfur, that they are decently rare. The states that do have them actually do often have quite a lot of them, but like the states that do have them is not very abundant. So keep in mind, where do I have my sulfur, and what am I going to use my sulfur in? Because it just maximizing sulfur is a great idea. All right, furniture is actually pretty decent. But it's not great. It's not great to produce early, since you need the wood in construction anyway. It's better. It's not great late game either, since like furniture kind of falls off in terms of when, like, how much people want it with standard of living. Luxury furniture not as much, but it's just all right. Like, and if you're going to produce them, they are decently nicely like in the mid game. If you have a lot of wood, that is. You want to be producing, like, you want to be maximizing your logging camps at as much as possible anyway. So say you are Russia, right, and you build like just huge amounts of logging camps, and you have nowhere for that wood to go because you maybe moved on to iron frame or steel frame building. Then maybe furniture is a decent place to go. You also unlock the sorry about that. You also unlock the production methods for furniture very early, so it is efficient it's very efficient very early, but then falls off. So it's like one of those, it's all right to be producing in the mid game, but it's not to mass produce and export, I do believe. But it is all right. And you have like assembly line and stuff like that, which to make it all right for in terms of wages and stuff like that as well. So it is like middling. It is all right. You definitely want to have it around in your economy. Maybe not like exporting. And then we have logging camps. Logging camps is like arguably it's up here. Don't know where. It's maybe like logging camps is a S tier item because it's the logging camps used on sawmills. It's the one of the easiest and most efficient way to A, build your economy, B, increase your construction sector, and C, like de-peasantify your population, right? So you want to be absolutely hammering out logging camps if you can. And if you can't, it's game over. No, I kid. But like, it is so super important to kickstart your economy by having like, because in the early game, every construction point kind of matters, and logging camp being an extremely efficient building in terms of construction and important for your entire early game. is reasons enough to be just worshipping this building. Like efficiency per construction is 100, which is like it's what mines provide at with diesel pumps. It's more than you know, it's more than all of the industries, even at higher techs. It's like, yeah, it's S tier. It's like no competition really. So similarly, coal is like, it's either low S tier or high A tier. Coal is a mine. All of the mines are pretty good. They are like pretty, like decently cheap to construct. They have pretty good production methods, and provides a lot of value. Especially coal is needed for essentially everything else in your economy. So having a lot of coal mines is crucial, and you should absolutely be maximizing them everywhere you can. The drawbacks with mines and coal is that you sometimes, unless you are like Germany or something, you cannot produce, you cannot maximize, like you utilize the full potential of economy of scale if they don't reach up to 51. And in the very late game, I think they fall off in terms of how much wage they can provide. Let me check it. Yeah, it's not even on diesel pump. It's not like it's not bad by any means, but it's not great. But coal mines is a given that you should be just maximizing as soon as possible. It's important for your industrialization. It's decently cheap, so it's a good way to provide jobs for your people, and it also, you know, uses explosives, which is good for sulfur and all that jazz, right? So coal is definitely A tier. So tools is an interesting one, because tools is one of those that you need tools all the time, and you would think that tools is kind of like, oh, it's not a consumer industry. It's like, it should be like, oh well, tools are not great, right? Tools are actually, with the introduction of the machined steel production method, which uses rubber, I think. Yes, it uses rubber instead of wood, and some more steel. It turns into like one of the best production methods in the game, like one of the best buildings in the game. So building rubber plantations is nice. Having somewhere for that to go is nice. And with machined steel, it's one of the best wage providers in the game. And you want tools anyway, right? You want tools if you like, you will always need more tools, and even if you don't, tools is a great like building to be constructing and exporting. So like, especially in the late game, right? Because that with assembly line to like somewhere for your oil to go, and with machine steel, like it's such a good like wage provider. It's pretty efficient. You always need it. It has a pretty nice production chain with oh well, not steel is not great, but like the iron and coal and whatnot, right? So tool, like with the tools would I would put it in A tier before they introduced machine steel, but now, like in the late game, like it's one of the best factories. So just if you like, it's a thing I lived for in many months, is that whenever in doubt, just produce more tools. It works in the early game, it works in the mid game, and it definitely works in the late game now. So like definitely yes there. I don't know before like opium, and maybe it's before opium. No, maybe. I'll stick it here for right now. Okay, so groceries is something that you want in your economy, but you don't want to be exporting it. It's not very efficient. It's not like, it's not that great of a wage provider and stuff like that, but you want it in your economy. You want it to be you want groceries to be replacing agricultural goods, to diminish the power of the landowners and give it to the capitalists to give you more investment pools, so you can put that into other projects. So you definitely, like, you need it in your economy, but it's not something you like mass produce and export. And it also have like inputs that can be pretty hard to come by, such as sugar, fish, stuff like that. You absolutely want to be building fish a lot, but you know, not every nation is blessed with great coasts. So it's one of those buildings, like, yeah, you want it, but it's like not being mass produced, right? So hardwood is a weird one, because hardwood, you want hardwood, but it's used in, it's kind of one of those necessary evils, because you want it in furniture and stuff like that. And it can help your logging camps when softwood isn't that in demand anymore. But it's not great, because it's a split good. It's like hard to balance, and it's like you definitely don't want to produce it in the early game. And in the late game, your log camps will not be good wage providers either. So it's one of those, like, oh well, you will produce it if you have to, but if you don't have to, you don't want to be mass producing it. Same goes with engines. Engines is a very expensive building to build. And engines is also needed for a lot of things. But it's not a great one to be producing lots of. So like, engines is like coal. It's like used in a lot of stuff, especially when you start to automate a lot of stuff. But it's not a great, it's like steel. It's not a great building to be just mass producing, just because, well, I don't know what to be building, and it's definitely not good to be constructing, right? So it's like, yeah, it's like middling. Just put it if you need it. It has assembly lines, which is a bonus, but it's like and you like the bump you get from like, it uses a lot of oil, I think. When you go from the electric engines to diesel engines, you actually want your oil to go elsewhere. Like, there's a lot of places for the oil to go, and for example, your mines, it's one of their greatest priorities. Like diesel pumps is such a huge bump when it comes to efficiency that you want to prioritize them, and just producing more engines is not really worth it. So I would like, it's like one of those, like, I need this in my economy, but it's basically a tax. I need this. I need it to, for my economy to function, not because I want to be producing lots of it. The same goes with steel. Steel is steel is an important good, but steel is also a very inefficient good. The building is very expensive to construct. It's used in construction, so it's important, but it's very expensive to construct. It's basically a tax on. It's not a good wage provider. It's not a something you want to be exporting. You basically want steel because you need it in a lot of other things, and especially your construction industry, right? So it's basically what the price you pay for a more efficient construction sector. But you definitely you want the steel price to be high, because the margins are not high. So you like, ideally you want to be importing steel if you can, and you definitely don't want to be exporting it. And watch out for the AI will try to steal it from you because they will be lagging behind in their own steel production. So it's one of those like goods that are quite annoying, because like, I need steel to produce my tools, or I need steel to in my construction sector, but it's actually not a nice building to be building. It's slow, it's expensive to build, doesn't provide a lot of value. So I wouldn't I would put it in B tier. So cars is an interesting one, because cars, they patched this, so the populations actually demand cars now. So actually producing cars might be worth it now, because it didn't used to. It was basically a military good before. The thing is that cars doesn't really have a good production method. It's split between motor industries, and you need motor industries is not something that you build like surplus of. So having a mixed production between cars and motors is often a bad thing, because raising the price of motors will, like, it will raise the cost for many of your other industries and your like railway and whatnot, right? And the amount of cars that you produce is not that high for the amount of work that you put in. But the thing is that what can save that is that the cars are often, the demand at that stages of the game are often pretty high. So the car price is often kept high, which is helps with profitability, right? So that's what can save it. So I'll keep it in B tier. But it's very like situational how the market and it's very sensitive to prices. Just wanted to check how actually good it is. Am I a blind person? Motor industries, there you go. Yeah. It's not a good wage provider, and it's not that efficient either. At base price, obviously, because it increases labor used. Okay. How is chat doing? Paper is mid, yes. Coal is good to produce. Coal is absolutely good to produce. Like if you somehow end up with a coal, like coal is cheap, you might be doing something wrong. But if coal is cheap, if you have that many coal mines, then coal is absolutely worth just building up and exporting. All of the mines are, because the mines are pretty good at providing value. The thing is that they are limited, so you can't build like unlimited amounts of them. So you basically want to keep that goods for yourself. Otherwise, if you could build unlimited amount of sulfur mines and coal mines, you would absolutely build that and export it until your heart's content, right? Groceries used to be good for export. Like how far back are we talking? Goods used to be good for export, and the groceries. So I know, like, one proud Bavarian, he swore by groceries as one of his favorites. Don't know if it was role playing or if it was actually good game mechanically wise, but I know that Bavarian used to like groceries. 1.3. All right. Meat is absolutely horrendous. Don't ever produce meat if you have to. I think that's enough said about that. So silk can either be produced in plantations, or it can be used by produced by rayon, or in synthetics. Synthetic silk is actually the only building in the game that has a negative added value. So it actually subtracts at base price. It actually subtracts value from your economy. Obviously, so that's a big waste of resources. You're building buildings that will not provide value but actually extract value. But the thing about synthetics is that there are two things to say about that. It's not really there to be profitable. It's there to provide a service, to be convenient. It's like military goods. You want, like, if say a war breaks out and you don't want your silk to be interrupted, it's great to have it domestically. And it's owned by capitalists, which is great. It provides investment pool and stuff. And it's a outlet for sulfur. It's not a great one. It's like you're building a factory that consumes sulfur, but it transforms that sulfur into negative value. But like having silk readily at hand, not produced in the colonies, and available to you, might be worth that service. It's one of those that don't build it to you never build that building if you don't have to, but if you want to have that convenience and you have some sort of massive clothing industry and you want to keep that safe, or you have nowhere else for your sulfur to go, maybe consider it. But I consider like this, like transport or, you know, military goods, it's one of those that, well, it's a service. You can, if you need it, you'll produce it. Well, if you meat comes with whale oil, yeah. If well, if you have whales, yes. Which is not that, it's not usual for starters, and it's often you often don't have that much use for oil that early in the game either. Meat also competes with groceries. Oh, well, fair enough. But it just feels like a niche thing to me. That you should bump up meat just because, well, whale stations, but I might be convinced. If you make a case for it, but like never ever I don't want to see you constructing livestock farmers, because I will find you and make you a cake. You wouldn't want to see me baking. So okay, dice is like it's better than, okay, no. So dice is if we're talking about the plantation, dice is awful until we have automatic irrigation, and then it turns into a nice building. It's not a great building, but it's a nice building. It uses motors, and it is pretty efficient. It just doesn't provide value to your investment pool, and doesn't give political clout to anyone who you care about. But on a construction basis, it is pretty efficient. It's not great when it comes to it's not great when it comes to pop. So providing wages. So, but like, if you have automatic irrigation, you have spaces over in your colonies. I can't say one. I can see why not. You want dyes for multiple other things. It also applies for the previous, the actual, like, synthetic dyes is better than synthetic silk. Actually a lot better. Not great, but still good. And it's somewhere for the sulfur to go if you need it. And, you know, dyes is important for a lot of other stuff. So if you want dyes at home, owned by capitalists, and dyes are expensive, and you want some, and your sulfur, you have abundance in sulfur, why not? But it's one of those, like, you don't want to be massive building it and exporting it. Yeah, I feel like them, like, meat being used in groceries is actually, that was actually a good change, because otherwise before that meat was even worse. It basically is useless food item that you would, it would just end with being a consumer good, and it would be horrendous because it would just compete with groceries instead of being in the production chain. So I am convinced. I'll stick it in the seat here. So rubber is a S tier item. It's not a, like, it's not a great S tier item, but it's definitely an S tier item, especially when you have all of the plantation techs, right? Rubber is used in in a lot of production methods that you care about, especially tools, right? Like the new one. It's pretty old now, but it is super nice in that one. Rubber is also like, it produces a lot of value. Like all the plantations, it's pretty cheap to construct, and just provides value fast. So you definitely want to be like looking for stuff for colonists that have rubber. It's so totally worth warping your colonization game for. Hold on. But do they count it as a resource? Yes, they do. All right. Yeah, just immense construction efficiency. So it's an easy way to like bump up your GDP figures. It's used in a lot of things, and a good way to provide value in your colonies. So rubber, absolute nest here. All right. All right. It's low S tier, but it's still S tier. Iron is like here somewhere. Iron is a mine, so it's nice to construct. It's absolutely essential for your construction sector. It's in the steel production chain, which turns into tools. It can also, it's also important for your tools. So it's, iron is one of those, like, given, like, you can't avoid it. You need iron. It's not a choice, really. Like, oh, do I produce iron mines or not? Like, you have to produce iron mines. You have to have iron. You have to have lots of iron. Iron mines is also like in opposite to steel, for example. It's a good building to be producing because it's pretty cheap, or not. It's not cheap, but like it's cheaper. And yeah, essentially essential to your industrialization, your steel, your construction, and any construction good is automatically something you should be prioritizing. So you that it doesn't need a lot of strategizing. It's just that iron, you need iron. Iron is a good workplace. It's not as great as logging, but as is the production method is more efficient, so it kind of justifies that. You do want to be producing logging camps, prioritizing logging camps before iron mines, to get kind of a get the ball rolling really with the investment pool and with politics, essentially just trying to fix your demographics so that you can move into more progressive laws. Because that's also something that should be said, right? I mentioned this in my last video, that like you could be having a perfect, like you could be prioritizing, you know, building more, you know, building the right buildings at the right time. Doesn't matter if you have the worst laws in the game. Like if you're Russia and you're stuck on traditionalism and serfdom, doesn't matter if you could have all of Transvaal, you can have all of, you know, all gold mines. Okay, gold mines is a bad example because gold mines kind of cheats you into money. But like, say you could have sulfur and logging camps, and you could be, you know, prioritizing them correctly and using all of the greatest production methods. Doesn't really matter because it will be like investment pool contribution is so important, and having peasants that move up in the chain and become educated and stuff like that is so important. And technology is so important. So it's like you could be having the best tier list in the world and being the greatest builder in the world, but if you don't have the right laws, then you're screwed anyway. Which is why logging camps, it's another, you know, point to the logging camps, because not only is it a very efficient building, it's very cheap to construct, provides a good wage, important for construction. It's also a building that starts to produce capitalists in your country to be able to move into more progressive laws if you're not already on them, which is more essential. Essentially, getting off traditionalism trumps, like that is more important than building anything in the right order. Like that trumps everything really, and getting off slavery, obviously. All right. Oil is also S tier. I'll put it before. Okay, so how do I want to do this? I want to put it here, maybe. Yes. Here is nice. Or maybe that. No. All right, okay. Oil is actually, the thing about oil is that it's so good that, but you don't always have it. So if you don't have it, you cannot like construct your economy around it. But if you have it, it's also a late game thing, right? But if you have it in the late game, you definitely want to be using it. Just it provides on its own, it provides a very good wage, and it's used in the best production methods in the game. It's used in diesel engines in your mines. It's used in all of the automation, like, you know, assembly lines, all of the great wage pushing, labor saving PMs in many factories, right? So like just pulling oil out of the ground will give you a lot of wages, and all of the things it's used in just improves efficiency massively. So oil is one of those resources that is you like, you know, sulfur and gold and opium and rubber. You more so than those, actually. You want to be if you don't mind metagaming, you want to be like colonizing places where you know that this is a place where I will find oil later. In Colombia, in you know, well, the Middle East, in the southern parts of Russia or you know, Persia, like that, or in Texas, right? Because oil is such a late game, if you make it to that late in the game, obviously, right? But like, oil is such a late game changer that you want to be, if you are planning on keep playing until that part of the game, and you want to stay relevant. It's important in warfare as well, because of war machines, airplanes. It's such a important trade good that you want to warp your entire, like, conquering and colonization doctrine where the oil is found. Kind of like what the US is already doing in the modern times, right? The whales have a construction efficiency of 80, so it's slightly better than fish. So both are lower and upper strata consumer goods early in the game. Well, yeah, the thing is that whaling stations, they are rare. You can't often stack them at all. So, the economy of scale kind of never plays a role. And oil doesn't become relevant. I guess it can be used as a heating good for consumer purposes, but it's, yeah, obviously, like, if you have them, build them, sure, but you can't really formulate a strategy around whaling stations. It's a nice thing to have. So electricity is absolutely, like, horrendous now. It requires a lot of micromanagement, but it's one of those things that, like, I don't want to put it in C tier because I despise C tier. But, like, the thing is, like, it's needed, but it's very micro intensive, and it's like it's needed. It's a infrastructure thing. It's like roads. It's not something you want to be producing. You want to be producing the exact amount of power that you need. No more than that. You can't export it and stuff like that in vanilla. So, and it's very dependent on what state and whatnot, right? So it's like, don't overbuild on power stations. Also very expensive to build, so it's not a great way of giving people job fast either. Unfortunate, but that's the truth. Lead, it's A tier. It's not like super A tier, but it's definitely A tier because lead is a mine. You want to be producing it. It goes into glass, which is nice. It goes into military industry, which is okay, needed for military industry. Not a great buyer of it, but you know, still. Mines, lead mines use explosive. It has the same efficiency as iron in all aspects, both per construction and per pop. So you absolutely want to be building it if you have them. I mean, you can overbuild them and export it if you want. But it's often an item that it's not like yeah, use it in glass and stuff like that, but it's like it's not a item that you overly want to, like, it's not a good that you have a lot of abundance for, and it's not a good that is needed everywhere else either. So even though it is A tier, but it's not it's not as comparable to the greatest, like iron and coal and sulfur. So it definitely in A tier, but in low A tier. So railway is not in D tier. The transportation is in D tier. Just because how super important electricity is, but I can just as easily have it in D tier because I just dislike the state of power plants in the current stage of the game. Yeah, power plants even have atrocious, not atrocious, but they have pretty bad wage pushing too. Almost borderline atrocious. And it's not efficient at all either. So it's like, it's essentially just labor going into keeping the other things up. And doesn't have labor saving. And you don't want, if you can help it, you don't want it to be fueled by oil either, because you want the oil to go elsewhere. Telephones, kind of the same thing as cars or motors or stuff like that. You want to be producing it. It's not very efficient. You want to be producing it because it's important in military and stuff like that. So a cautious B tier, maybe C tier. Power plants, groceries, furniture, textile, art. Yeah, not very great. Not wage pushing either. But important. You want it in your economy, just don't overbuild it. The same goes for ships, I think. Oh dear, I have lost my mouse pointer. Help, how do I get my mouse pointer back? There we go. So clippers is one of those, like, it's also not a good that you it's not a good that you really want to be producing and exporting. Arc welded has some pretty good production methods, but it's yeah. What are the texts for steel ships and being able to use steel ships to two different things? Yeah, absolutely right. Like, and I often find like it's a split good, and I often find the balance to be super annoying. Because like you often produce one more of one than the other, and it's also not a good that is in high demand, so you can't easily export it away either, or import it for that matter. So it's one of those like good that you need for your economy to keep running. The good thing about fishing industry is that it uses clippers, which you often can be producing a bunch of. So that's nice. But other than that, like, it's not something you produce to be exporting. Tea. If we're going to put tea and coffee in the same kind of boat, we put other industrial goods. Tea and coffee is part of luxury drink, I think. Tea, coffee, and wine is in the same need, I think. Let me check that actually. Oh, sorry about that. S for tea. Well, if you... The UK has an obsession for tea, don't they? Luxury drinks, yes. Tea, coffee, and wine. So, you know, they are consumed by rich people. They are constructed. They're produced by plantations, which is not owned by capitalists, and they turns good only after you got automatic irrigation. Wine being the exception. Wine is actually might be a bit better, since, well, it depends on if you want to judge it before or after you have automatic irrigation, because you can when the grain price often becomes severely like depressed, very quickly, or not very quickly, but in the late game, the grain people are moving on from early standard of living to later, like more standard of living, so the grain price drops. So if you do have some grain farms, which often you do, you can nowadays turn them, if you are in the in the right areas, you can turn them to just stop producing entirely wine, which is an improvement, I think. But automatic irrigation is still just better, I do believe. I think I would have to guess that Georgia is British, so that would explain the obsession of tea, quite literally. Could we also petition Paradox to have coffee as a like obsession goods for Scandinavia? I can. Hashtag make coffee great again. But yeah, that's the tier list. I don't know if it actually turned out the way I thought it would turn out. Also, don't, you know, I've been mixing these around a lot. Don't really, you know, put a lot of emphasis on where these are placed within each tier, because it's all kind of messed up, right? Gold is definitely first. Grayness and art is definitely, you know, if not dead last, very, very far down. Gold, oil, sulfur, logging, opium tool, and rubber. Oh, it is pretty close. But given like rubber and the opium is more powerful than logging, but logging is such an amazing building in the early game. I really want to emphasize that. So I think that I will satisfy with this order in the S tier. The other ones I don't want to like really mix with. But yeah, that's the tier list. You are welcome. Thank you for staying with me this impromptu stream. I not used to be streaming like this, used to make video content. So thank you for being patient. Almost 2 hours. But yeah, any other questions or so far, or matters of debate that we can do for a couple of minutes before I conclude the stream? It is getting late here in Swedenland. Georgia, you can expect more content when I get the urge of making more content. I'm sorry I can't be more precise, but I haven't really felt the need to make more content other than this tier list. So it's when the need arrives. What would you want to see content on? That's an open question. You can all answer that. Pretty sure I will be retired when EU4 releases, so yes, I guess. I was planning on making like a can you just build art academies, and I did that for Austria because, you know, memes, right? And I started recording it and it just turned out horrible. Just boring. You just produce art academies. But it's a great idea and concept. I would like some strategy guides for specific countries or situations. That like I feel like that subject is pretty covered by many other content creators that are greater than I. Unless you are thinking of some obscure country. For most of the for most of the uncivilized countries, the gameplay loop is pretty similar. It's you build logging camps if you have them. You build iron mines if you have them. You build tooling workshops. You do that until the politics allow you to progress to better laws. Japan. I mean, just Japan is just get good, right? I just kidding. I can try Japan. I'll do some test playthroughs. Best arable land buildings. You don't want arable land buildings. You want as much arable land open as possible to increase your attraction. I mean, I can stream play in the game. Absolutely. But there are a lot of content creators that probably are better at explaining like starting tips for a lot of countries. Like Generalist Gaming is like my he is the guy I am inspired of doing all of this stuff. He's the one who's put together the spreadsheet. And has a lot of starting guides for a lot of countries that are like relevant. Pretty recent too. I think he has like a Japan playthrough like 2 weeks ago or something. But yeah, streaming was kind of fun. I like interaction. I could, yes. I have found a pretty, like, I am pretty nerdy, so I found a niche that I like, which is being like analyzing and doing a lot of macro stuff, strategy guides and whatnot. But yeah, speaking of immigration attraction, they changed that actually recently. So having open jobs is more important now. So it doesn't like so say you overbuild, like say you build 1 billion logging camps, right, which in the late game will have a hard time to employ because all of the other places will have better wages, right? That's actually good for you now, since having I think they like 5x'd the amount of immigration attraction you get from having open jobs. So having, you know, overbuilt on logging camps is actually good for you now because it will increase immigration attraction so much. So logging camps, hashtag. Oh. All right. Last questions. You have 1 minute. That's fine, Georgia. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. It's fine to be out of questions. All right then. Thank you for chiming into my chaotic tier list stream. I will conclude the stream here, and I'll see you guys next time.